have that flexible approach to life. Just be open to people. You might be the best thing that happens to somebody in a day. And you might not even realize that you are. So just be open to the possibility.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good afternoon, Kenneth Kully. Previously, episode 1480 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 2 months, 1 day, and 30 minutes since we last had that recorded conversation. That was then. This is now. Kenneth, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. Just shaking off a bit of a winter cold, but nothing major.
I remember you said the last time that you love the cold.
I do, and the cold usually loves me, but you know what? When it gets to minus 30 and everybody's just clustered around indoors, it's a really good way to, pass a cold around, and oh well.
How do you go outside in that type of weather?
Layers, lots of layers.
Wow, I've never experienced that type of temperature.
It's pretty intense, but when you live in this climate, right? Northern Alberta, you live here, it's kind of, you roll with it when it happens because it's going to happen every year.
How have your children adjusted? Is it that they stay inside more often or are they outside? Are they more immune to it than you?
You know what? They do seem to feel cold differently, but obviously, and our job as parents is kind of to gauge for them when they maybe aren't the best judges of whether it's too cold or not. But like last night, my one daughter, she's in Scouts and her Scout troop was meeting outside. But equally, they chose a place that had a facility there. So if they did get too cold, they could go indoors. And then towards the tail end of the activity, they had a big campfire going so they could stay around that and be warm. So it just takes more planning, right?
Understood. Just like life. Yeah, it sounds like a life principle. You could get all philosophical right there, right? Yeah, that's
a little bit.
Well, tell us about what's going on in the Scouts world. The last time we spoke, of course, you're doing 2 podcasts then. How have things evolved today?
Scouting hasn't changed an awful lot in the last couple of years. It works more by upheavals, right? So, we had a big program upheaval, 2012, 2013, right. But then it's largely just kind of had status quo since then, right? And my group is doing better than ever. We continue to grow. I think we last year held the records for the number of youth in Beaver Scouts, so our 5 to 7 year olds, and also Cub Scouts, so 8 to 10 year olds. I think we held the record for Western Canada in both cases, so the largest group basically in Western Canada. And our numbers are up this year. So
how do you manage that with 4 children?
Yeah. Well, one thing, it helps that they're on different nights, so one kid goes to Beaver Scouts one night, another one's in Cub Scouts a different night. And so that helps in part. But you know what? Last night I had 3 of the 4 kids along, right? One went to Scouts, one went to Cub Scouts, and then my young son, who's only 2, he's too young for the program, but he likes to tag along. So he just came with me to the Cub Scout meeting and just hung out.
Wow. Yeah, my son was just here and he's begging me. He's 5. He's like, can I just stay in the room? I want you to, but I have an hour here and I don't think you'll be able to remain in here. It's like, all right.
It's hard to stay still when you're 5.
Yeah, and I can understand that, yeah. And why would I want my podcast to strap him down, right? So, but you've been part of creating the programs as well, in terms of you're the guy facilitating the Beaver side. Are you still doing that?
Still do the Beavers, a little bit less so. There's a couple of other volunteers who've come up into the fore for that. So, I definitely still help with planning and with running the meetings, but there's less overall burden falling on my shoulders. And similarly with the Cub Scouts. And that's actually been, I think, maybe if there's been one big change, it's been that I've continued to grow my team of adult volunteers, my Scouters. And I was remarking this to a few of them a couple of weeks ago. I actually got into reading a book about how to form. It was written by a youth minister, so he's talking mostly about forming adult volunteers for youth ministry, in a church context. But I'm trying to apply a lot of the lessons from that book to scouting. And this author was talking about the fact that, one hallmark of success for him is, when he gets his volunteers, and he never wants to see his volunteers leave, but if he gets his volunteers to a point where they could literally come to him and say, you know what, I have this really great opportunity. I want to go start a youth ministry over at this church over here. For him, that's his big marker for success, is when he empowers his volunteers to, basically pick up and run with the program in a new place without him having to, be in the leadership role over them.
That has to come from a place of abundance, yeah?
It does. And that's one thing that we've been really fortunate with in our group, is the fact that, I have now this absolutely amazing team of Scouters for my Beaver Scouts, for my Cub Scouts. And I'm really at the point with a lot of them where, I wouldn't want to see any of them leave. But if any of them came to me and said, you know what, hey, like there's this new group, they're rebuilding over in this other community here. It's a little closer to home and I really want to help them out. I'd have absolutely no doubts about their ability to jump into that and succeed.
What's the name of the book you're reading?
You know what? Hang on. I will have to send that to you because it is across the room right now and I can't grab it.
Yeah, you see those things when it's immortalized. Yeah, it just brings value. I've found sometimes you're listening to this a couple of years out, and because that name is in there, you're in a place or a space and you go buy that book and it helps your life. So yeah, please do send me that. So you are doing this. We focus on you, the children. How is your wife impacted by your focus and everything that's going on? Because there still is the podcast, right? The podcast is still there. Spam humbug. Is that still up?
Yep, it is. Actually, I just published an episode, to the Spam Humbug Patreon just went up today, and then it'll go live tomorrow for public audience. And then Scouting Stuff, I'm recording a new episode this weekend.
Wow. Yeah. So how is she impacted by your drive and your focus?
Well, you know what? It kind of, we try and make it as complimentary as possible, right? Like, I mean, a lot of my edits I'll do just on the go, right? Because, I'm occasionally commuting for work. So, I'll just crack open my laptop and do my edits on the go, throw on the noise canceling headphones and not worry about the bus noise. But then also, she's an RN and we've got it actually a pretty sweet arrangement. So like, I work sort of the typical daytime, full-time hours, 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever. And then she is a casual float registered nurse. So she can pick up shifts in the evening or whatever. So a lot of the times I'll just, sneak in recordings when like if she's going to be working, her shift will go till 11. She won't be home until midnight. Kids go to bed around 9:30. So
Freedom!
If I know that if I have an hour in an evening, I'll just ping the podcast group and I'll be just like, guys, I got a free evening. You want to do this? And they're like, sure, yeah, as many as show up can, and we go.
That's wonderful. How much of life with children is being able to adapt to your situation?
Oh, flexibility is everything. It is everything.
For your sanity, right?
For your sanity and just to even, maintain and keep these things going, right? I mean, if I want to find time to, spend half an hour just playing a video game, I got to be flexible. I got to figure out when that's going to work.
I remember your earliest childhood memory, right, was when you figured out that you were no longer a cartoon. Oh, the reality hit.
Oh, yes. It hits so hard.
As I said, I never heard a memory expressed like that. And I've had some conversations since, and still I've not heard one just like that. Your uniqueness is such an important aspect of who you are as you are working with children amidst so many children that have passed through the beaver stage. How do you see that? Is it real? Is it pertinent that each child does have this unique ability?
You know what? I mean, every child does have something unique to them, something that they are just going to be a rock star at. And, honestly, if I can help some of them find that, then I think I've done my job. As a volunteer working with youth, just in any capacity, I think like that is one of the key indicators of, you have done well by the youth that are in your charge. Just like if you can help a kid hit a point where something just clicks for them and it just like unlocks this little bit of potential. And I mean, like, I don't expect that, necessarily the kid's going to walk away with like their entire life defined, right? Especially not at age 5. But you know what? Yeah, if I can just help them like identify something where it's like, that is totally your thing, dude, and you run with it, then I've succeeded, right? And if I can do that for more than one kid, then I have succeeded and accrued blessings that I can't even begin to count.
You're being influenced by the youth, and of course that
all the time
rubs off on you. You can hear it, right? You can hear the youthfulness in your voice, the energy that needs to be there. However, the concept of death, is that something that you put on the back shelf of the conversation in your life, or is that something that even sticks out even more because of your interaction with youth? You know
what? It depends sometimes, right? We've been fortunate over the last few years that we haven't had to deal with, too many tragedies involving the loss of human life that have impacted, sort of the youth in my group or even just within our family here. But like, my kids are no stranger to going to funerals, and various of the kids that I've worked with have lost, say, pets, right, over the last few years. And you know what? Like, those are hard things. The best that I've found that I can be for youth in those situations is, if anything, a sounding board, right? Because I never know what kids are going to be dealing with when they show up for beavers or when they show up for cubs. Maybe they're having a really bad week. Maybe all kinds of bad stuff has happened, and maybe they just need 5 minutes with someone to just get it all out of their system. And they just need someone to sit there and, be the recipient of that. Fine, then I can be that, but it's kind of, you never really know going into any particular meeting week to week what you're going to be challenged with or what your youth are going to be challenged with and what they're going to bring to you. So there has to be that sense of openness. And I guess too, that sense of, the ability to take, because you know what? I don't know week to week necessarily what's going to be weighing on me when I'm getting ready for beavers and I'm going to show up.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what? It's one thing for the kids to be able to sound off to me. I really have, I definitely cannot put the same expectation on the kids that they're going to be able to be a sounding board for anything that's bothering me. I really have to be able to put my stuff aside and just make it about them for a while. And then if afterwards I'm sitting and talking with some of the other scouters, then maybe we can air stuff at that time.
Yeah. I mean, like immediately I'm seeing in my mind, come on, children, come on. I have an issue here. Yes, my wife, whatever. What do you all think?
Yeah, no, you can't do that, right? You can't do that.
It doesn't work. Well, my friend, I'll tell you, it is a grand opportunity to call in, get a response as well for an invitation back onto the conversation, which means you're alive.
Yes.
And more so that you've continued to press on around what you're doing. Your focus on family life, your focus on what's going on in the podcast as a result of what's going on with the Scouts, as well as the video games. It's really cool to see that. It is inspirational and motivational. The one thing that's challenging is the minus 30 degrees. Other than that.
Hey, it's supposed to get even colder next week, minus 40.
Oh my, Kenneth, again, you are amazing. Well done, my friend. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Well, you know what? First, thank you. I was really honored to receive the opportunity to come back and have a follow-up conversation. So that's really, really awesome. And I don't know if there's, I think anything that, I would encourage on people, it's, just, have that flexible approach to life. Just be open to people, especially, right? Because, people matter. They matter so much. And you might be the best thing that happens to somebody in a day. And you might not even realize that you are. So just be open to the possibility.
I love it. Again, amazing audience. Kenneth Kully. It's a pleasure I treasure. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.